What we're going to install today is the new Bullseye Blockhead Direct Drive. This is a system that I've been working on, and it'll be using the new and improved blockhead uh, as its primary cooling mod. This is what we're going to be installing. These are just dummy parts. Okay, there's a part in here, and then I already have it mounted to an extra back plate. This is how I do all my prototypes, and so I can make sure that it's going to fit on the machines. So that's what we have now, and then what I'll be doing is taking this back apart before we install it on the machine, because none of these dummy parts will mount on the machine. So that being said, a few things that I do special on these E3D hot ends is make sure that all the nut captures are in place before I install it. And let me kind of show you how that works. Set that off to the side. And so all of my Petsfangs have a nut capture feature on them. There's a couple of nuts here. There's nuts that hold in the ABL. And what you want to do is just make sure that those are all mounted before you start the installation. Okay, so it's very easy to do. I just use a really small set of channel locks, and that's a 3mm nut. And you can see that 3mm nut, I've got both of the flat ends in that orientation. And then what I can do here is, you can see that I've already got a nut in place here, but I'll slide the nut into this one and just show you how easy it works. Let's see if I can show that here. Got the angle, and that just slides into place, okay? And then I just just take that off, and then you can just push that into place, okay? And then once you have it in place, you want to make sure that it's centered, okay? So just view down the hole, and just take your 3mm Allen wrench, and you can usually just move it into position. And then it's ready to accept a screw, and you can take a screw, you can just start a screw in it, and that way you're sure that it's good and centered. So you want to do that with all of your parts. See, that screw is centered, and that's ready to go. Okay? You can see these back screws are centered in the opening, these two at the top, and those will hold on the back plate. And you can see that those are set up as well. Those are ready to go. So the only other thing you really need to do before you start installation is, we'll go back to the part that we're going to install, and on the fan mount for the hot end cooling, I typically don't put nut captures in these. The reason for that is it takes a lot of space within the design to put in a nut capture, and it's just not needed. All you're going to be doing is installing the fan on it. So what I do here is I typically just go into the holes and I just tap those with a screw. Okay? So I'll just tap those with a screw. I'll tap it down to its lowest point, and then just take it back and forth. It kind of heats that screw up, kind of cuts the threads nicely, and then I just back that out. And I'll do that with all four, and that way those are ready to go when I install the device. The last thing you want to do is have a nut that needs to be installed, or have the screws that need to be cut when it's on the machine. It's hard to get at some of these parts once they're on. So that's the way the direct drive is set up here. So what we'll do now is I'll start taking this apart and I'll show you how it's installed. Okay guys, a couple things I want to show you here before we get started. Actually, my kids from Omaha were here this weekend. They gave me these for Christmas. We were doing Christmas. And you can see all I do is have to hit it. It's got lights on it. They're actually pretty cool, and it allows me to work on this with some lighting. So we're going to do that. We're going to try it. Told the kids I would. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I want to show you the two nuts that hold the E3D hot end in place are deep inside here. Okay, you just set them in place and just push them in. So they could get loose, and we want it to be real square when we put the front plate on. Okay, so what I'm going to do here. Okay, so the nuts basically you can just take them, hold them flat like that, and just slip them into place. And they'll just kind of drop in. And once they drop in, you need to get them situated so they'll be flat. And you can see both of those nuts now are sitting in there flat. But once we put it up into position, they're going to want to tip over, or they might want to move as we move it into place. So what I found works best is I take a little bit. You can use any thin cardboard. I like just using matchbooks. I measure 10 millimeters width, and then I just cut that. I don't know if you can see that. Let's move it over here. And then I just cut that to 10 millimeters. Okay. And then I just cut that in half. And then what I can do with this is I just take it, kind of roll it up, kind of just a rolled piece like that. And then you can just take that and put that in the back, kind of open it up, and just put that in the back. And that will basically hold your nut in place against the back plate while you're tightening that up on the E3D. Okay, so I'm just gonna, now you might find that, once you get yours printed up, 10 millimeters might be just a tad bit long. You might want to cut it 9. We just basically want to keep that screw square to the nut as we put that in place. So there we go. That's and that will just crush. That'll just crush as we tighten it up against the back. It's not going to hurt it to be in there. These are 16 millimeter nuts or screws that go in here. They only go through the back just 2 or 3 millimeters. So it's not going to hurt to have that back there, but it will save you a lot in keeping those nuts captured and in place while you're installing everything. So this is a prototype I did for a guy. I've been testing it, and let's see. Actually, let's just take it off, and you'll see I use some screws that may be different than what you're going to use on yours. I try to do everything with 3 millimeter screws. This particular one mounts to the ABL mount on the side. All of my Petsfangs have the same ABL mount. So any of the ABL mounts that mount to my Petsfangs will all have the same offset. and they will all mount in the same position. Okay, and remember, if I've got a secondary, take this off. Now, on a lot of my newer devices, I am not putting a ringed ABL on there. This particular one is inductive. I typically have been using inductive because I make my own flexible beds, and in another video I'll show you how I do that. But you can see this is my flexible bed that I use on my ender, and I make all these, so I can do any configuration I want. Okay, so let's take some of those clamps off here, so it'll be out of place. I don't know if you can see that. Hopefully you can. Got two cameras, one to the back, one to the front. So, and you get that ABL up and out of the way. Go ahead and disconnect our stepper. Disconnect our fan. I always, whenever I'm working on a project, I'll put crimped ends on them, so I can take parts off, put parts on. Okay, get this one off. A real long one like that, it's up to you guys. And there's a lot, you know, if you guys don't have 3mm screws and nuts available, you can always use 1/8 inch or 444s. So we'll take, that's the 24-volt fan that went with this prototype. So, can you see that okay? Yeah. Okay, now this has the E3D V6 heatsink mounted inside the extruder. In this latest mod, I didn't have room to do that because I have to position it over. So this will actually come out, and then we'll mount it separately with a piece of Bowden between the two, or Bowden. Okay, and I'll just set that up, kind of off to the side. You can see, already got the gear on. This is ready to go. It will be in that orientation. Let's see. It will be in that orientation. It will be with the cable, the ribbon cable up. Okay, you could mount it with the ribbon cable back. It's all up to you, however you want to install that. I typically do the ribbon cable up because there is a mount on the side for a wire strain, but it's totally up to you guys. So we'll set that down. I go ahead and mount the ABL that I'm going to use to the back plate. In other videos, I know you guys have seen where it looks like they're using longer screws, and this actually holds it in place. This these screws do nothing but hold the ABL in place, and they should not even extend out. And these are 12mm screws, and they shouldn't even extend past the edge onto the plate. Again, I saved the fan screws. I'm going to reuse them because they work perfect for this fan. You typically only need 2. I believe those are 12mm as well, screws. You really only need 2 to hold the fan on. I'll leave it up to you guys whether you want to put all 4 on, but it's not necessary. I'll just move everything out of the way, and we'll take this back plate off. Now, just like all of my modifications, my dog's barking. I'm not sure why, but I don't really care. Okay, so like all of my Petsfang mods, all the Petsfangs, all of the mods get pushed into place. Okay, there's a little clip on the back. Okay, there's a little clip on the back, so they all go into place and then they slide over. Okay, they'll go into place and slide over. Can you see that? And then the screw goes into place. So this mod is the mod we're going to install is exactly the same. This goes into place on the back, and it just slides over. Okay, just like that. Okay, so we're back recording, I think. I cut a little bit off the back of this, off that paper. I didn't realize I was right over the top of the nut. So, as with all the Petsfangs, these slide into place and then just slide over. Can you see that? That little clip in the back, this little clip, the little recess there, just clips around the back plate, and that just really makes it secure. You know, once that clips into place, this is not going to move at all. So at this point, we'll start with this screw. Start it in. We want the back plate to be totally tight, so we'll just run this one in here. Light on it. Finger lights. Oh, perfect. Let's get a shorter one. Okay, now I like to put, since I don't have an ABL going on that side, I like to put a washer on it. You can use 1/8" washers, or you can use 3mm washers. I use little 1/8" aluminum washers that are used in pop riveting. They seem to work really good. But I got big fingers, so we'll try it with this. Once we get that screw in place, it's not going anywhere. So then the rest of it is just smooth sailing. Okay, so I've got that in place. You can see this is just not moving anywhere. I suppose you could leave it like that, but that's not the intention of this mount. The intention of this mount is to be as tight as it can possibly go to support that extruder that we're putting on the other side. So I'm going to come over here to the other side. There are 2 screws right here and right here. Now you probably can't see the nuts, they're back in there, but this piece will just set into place. I'll take back those screws off a little bit. We'll just set that into place.
I should have put that in first and just set it in there, but I didn't. But there's enough room for it to. So I'm going to hold that. I hope you can see that okay. Run those screws in. Now this supports that whole back plate. This now will be as strong as the back plate. I think you can see that okay. Can you? Yeah. Those screws go in. I'm going to tighten those up. Make those good and snug. And then our last one is going to go down in this hole. And that actually screws into the back plate. Those last two screw into the. In this one you could probably use like a 4mm screw, or a 3mm screw, but 4mm length. Doesn't need to be long. Now that's in place. Now that mount is as tight as the back plate. So we'll move to the front here. See if we can see it. We need to take this apart. So we need to take the E3D hot end out of the base, or out of the extruder rather. So we'll go ahead and remove that. And there's a section of Bowden. And we don't need the Bowden in there right now because that's going to be too short. Okay, so we've got the Bowden tube out. Now I had this running on the machine just a couple of days ago, so there was a little filament still left in the hot end, so I had to heat it up to pull the Bowden out. I'll heat it up again when I put the new Bowden in it, the small piece that we have to put in place. So what we're going to do at this point, since I've got this all connected, I'm just going to slide this into place, and I'm just going to run the wires up and around there, and I'm just going to push that, just let it sit there and kind of squared up. So you can see the mount is very tight, but obviously not tight enough to print. So what we're going to do here is we're going to, this is the cap. This is the 40mm fan cap. There's also 30mm if you want to use the stock E3D fan that comes with the V6. But this is going to be the 40mm. Now, if you remember, we put a little piece of cardboard in the back, so that should hold those nuts into place while we tighten them up. So what I'm going to do here is I've squared my nozzle up, okay, squared it up nice, and I'm just going to, I've got the screws in there, we're just going to set this into place and just tighten the screws in. Now we're going to do that very slowly so that we make sure we catch the screws that are sitting back there with the, now we've already mounted this once, we've already put this together once when we test fit it, so we know that those screws are going to be in there tight. Okay, so I'm going to tighten that up good. Now my mount is in place. I don't really need the piece that goes in the top, because the way I've got this designed is that the Bowden tube will be long, and I've got 4mm of play here. So what we'll do is we'll mount that into place, and then we'll measure it, and then we'll push it till the Bowden is totally tight against both surfaces. Okay, so what we're going to do here, I hate when that all comes apart, but it did. That's the fit in place. I've got the small end toward that, so what we're going to do is we'll fit a piece of Bowden in there, and that Bowden will see if I can get that. That bowden will extend clear to the end as we move that mount up and down, and then that will also press fit this to the bottom end of your hot end so that there will be no play in it. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we'll set that down. Okay, so I'm just going to put this together. I'm not going to put the bowden in it yet. I'm just going to put it together so it fits correctly. I've still got to mount my drive for my extruder in there. And then I'm going to take my small screw. It won't be attached to anything. And I'll just put that in to tighten it up. Now you don't really need this small screw in there. You don't really need that small screw in there, but they put that in so that the extruder will stay together as you're putting it in place. So now let's set this in place and let's kind of get a measurement. You've got at least 4 millimeters of play on this back mount. So let's just set it in place. Let's see what 4 millimeters looks like. So this mount will move that far. Can you guys see that? So what we're going to do is we're going to put the bowden. Now I use XS. It's up to you guys what you want to use. But I use all Capricorn stuff. This Capricorn will go all the way down into the E3D V6. Then we're going to measure the top. We're going to cut it off, and then we're going to lift this. We're going to put it up into place and then slide this down on it to where it's good and tight, and then we're going to mount the motor. So at this point, let's see how much we can get on there. So I hope you guys understood that. What we're going to do here is we're going to put a piece of bowden all the way down, clear to the bottom. Now we're going to heat it up. We're going to push it all the way down to the bottom, and then we're going to cut off the top, and then we're going to feed the top into the end, and then we're going to slide it down till it's a good friction fit so that there's no motion of the bowden tube. So let's do that. First of all, let's see how much I need to put into the tube. So I'm going to take that. I'm going to push it in all the way. I'm going to take it out. I'm going to measure it. And we'll just get a measurement on it. We'll take this right to the edge. And this looks like 30 millimeters. Okay, so it's 30 millimeters all the way into the base. 30 millimeters. So let's write that down. Now, if you guys are doing the same base, it's not going to matter. You've already got my measurements, and on a Titan, it's all going to be the same. I'm sorry I don't have any of the BMGs. I'm not sure how deep those go, but what I'm going to do here is mark where this fits into place. So this basically goes clear down to the bottom, almost flush with the motion on it. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this into place. Going to make sure it fits down all the way. And then we're going to measure our 30 millimeters from this ledge. Now we're going to add 2 millimeters because we've got 4 millimeters of play. So we're going to measure it 32 millimeters from that ledge. Okay, so let's set this at 32. I'm going to set this at 32. We're going to set that right on that edge. And then we're going to mark our bowden. what I'm going to do is mark it, and I'm going to look to see how close my mark is. Okay, so I want to cut right in the middle of that mark. Okay, so that's all the way down in the bottom. So that gives me, that's at 32 millimeters. We measured 30 millimeters is what we needed. So that's going to be 2 millimeters of play that I have for this. Hope that makes sense to you guys. Okay. And then let me find my knife. I said I wanted to cut right in the middle of that mark. So here's my mark right here, and I'm going to cut very square. Okay, make sure that your other side is already cut good and square. That's a factory end, so I know it's square. I'm going to assume it is. And I'm going to cut right in the middle of the mark, nice and square. Okay, so that should be my piece. So let's measure that just for okay, so for the E3D V6, I've got 97.5 millimeters. Let's try that. 97.5 Bowden. Okay, so what we're going to do here, and since neither one of these has a lock on it, on the Bowden adapter, we're going to slide that down all the way. And then we're going to slide that into the hole. Okay. I'm going to take it all the way down. And that is bottomed out. Okay. That is bottomed out. And let's see if, so with that bottomed out, I'm right in the middle. I'm right, which is exactly what I wanted it to be. Okay. We extended it 2 millimeters. So right now I can push this down. Hope you guys can see that. I can push that down. I'm tight at the bottom, tight at the top. That Bowden tube cannot move inside of that direct drive. Okay, so I'm going to slide that back out. Okay, so I know that that's the distance I want it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to mark the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to mark the bottom. I'm just going to put a ring around it. And I'm going to chamfer out the top. I'm going to chamfer out the top of the Bowden tube. That'll allow the filament to enter the Bowden tube very easy coming off the direct drive. So we're going to just chamfer that a little bit. We just want to leave plenty of material up there. You can see what the chamfer looks like. Okay. And then on the back side, the bottom side that I've got marked, I'm going to sand it. Okay. So I'm just going to hold it. Now you can chuck this in a drill lightly, and I'm just going to sand that. And what that does is it puts a reverse chamfer on the bottom, and that allows the end of that tube to really push itself. You see how that is set up there? That pushes the main portion of the center of that tube clear down into your hot end, and you won't get any excessive filament past that edge. Okay, so that's how I do that. Okay, so we're going to put this in place. Now I don't recommend that you do it with the fan with the fan on. Uh, you could break the blades pretty easy. Uh, okay, we're at 190. I'm just gonna run this in real quick and just make sure that we're still within our margin on the okay, so there it is, clear down at the bottom, and I'm still right in the middle, so I must have cleared everything out when I was working with it. So that's right where it's going to mount. Okay, so we'll just peel that back up, push that back in. Now we'll just turn our nozzle off. Now there again, with a brand new E3D, you will not have to do this. This is just one that, as you saw, was on that prototype, and turned out that the end of it did have a, let's see if you can see it. The end of it did have a little bit of a filament left. And it's bizarre, but this excess was still fairly pliable, and that excess is probably a year old that was in there. So if you guys, I definitely would recommend any of the Capricorn tubing. Tim also sells a knockoff. I'm sure that's good as well. I like the XS. It seems to, the XS has a little bit smaller diameter, and it handles TPU a lot better. Okay, so as we're waiting for this to cool down, I'm going to see where we are on this. Everything is moving fine. My thermistor is working properly. All the mounting is working where I want it. And so at this point, let's go ahead and mount the, let's mount the extruder. Okay, so naturally, if you've ever mounted one of these, you've got to have everything set up right in the middle. So we're going to go ahead and put that all the way down, and then we're going to get our stepper in place. So we're going to find the hole, and then we're just going to move that till we engage the screws. Excuse me, the spline. And then we're going to put one screw in loose. Okay, so we're going to find the hole. Now, all of these direct drives work on the property of compression to this plate. So a lot of the steppers will not have threads cut deep enough into them, and they bottom out on the threads before they actually pull tight to the plate. So if that happens, you guys are going to need to so if that happens, you guys will need to put a washer on your screw. Okay, I'm going to use a couple of them off the mount that I took off. Okay, I always like the longer one in the hole that holds the gear. And the reason for that is this one needs to be not tightened fully. So we'll put a little washer on that one. Now you can see we can use whatever we want. That's a 3mm Phillips. That's a 3mm. Okay, so we're going to keep those loose. And then we're going to tighten them up as we push down on the bowden to make sure that we are fully engaged on both sides. So you can see I can pull up. We want that all the way down. So we're just going to push down on it as we tighten up the screws. And this one needs a little washer on it. So let me grab a washer. Okay, so we'll put the washer on it. We're going to take a look at it, make sure it's good and square, and we're going to press down on it as we tighten it. That's going to hold it into place. Okay, now our stepper is tight, our extruder is all the way down, it's all the way down into our hot end, and it's all the way up into our guide for the filament. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is make sure that we've got spring tension there. I'm just going to take a piece of filament, I'm just going to feed it down in there, and I'm just going to make sure that that chamfer is good. Like everything's in place. So we've got our filament going down in there. We've got everything good and tight. Okay, so now let's hook up the Bullseye. I'm just going to back those screws out. Our hot end is cooled off, so we'll go ahead and turn that off. Now, like I say, I don't recommend you doing this while you've got the fan running. You're going to you'll end up breaking the fan blades. Okay, so the Bullseye goes in. Can you see that edge? And then just slides up and squares up with the opening. Okay, just like that. And we're going to find the hole. Okay, we're going to put that in lightly. Put the other side in lightly. We're not going to adjust anything yet till we get all the parts on. Okay, so there it's in place. The fan will fit in there like so. Got a screw that goes in there, holds it in place. So let's mount the ABL. Now, I'm going to take the nuts off of it, because this is the mount that I'm using now. This is a 12mm compression mount, and this is the same mount that Prusa uses on all their machines. So we're just going to back this off. Just going to open this up, and we're just going to work that down in there. And we're not going to adjust it yet. We're just going to keep it right there, because I don't remember what my offset is. But what we'll do is we'll bring it down, and we'll see where the okay, you can see it's picking it up right there, and we're about 2mm up. So I'm going to move this up. Now, you can just open up the mount. Makes it easier to pull it up. You can use a screwdriver, whatever you want. Okay, so we're going to move that up. Going to move it up about there. Let's see what that does with the... That's actually right on it, so I'm going to put it down just one more. Okay. And that's where we'll start. Then you can just tighten this up. There again, it's compression fit. Now this is not going anywhere. Let's set the blockhead height. Now, I know I see a lot of videos, guys putting these on, and not a lot of them are putting it on correctly, or they, they're putting it too low. They think that the airflow is better low. It's best to, if you're going to air to a height adjustment, adjust it too high, because it has about a 10 degree downflow on it. So, and then the new blockhead has an improved plenum. So this is a huge duct inside of here, a huge round duct. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and move our Z down till it touches. Get a piece of paper here. Now this isn't super critical, but we just want it to where, there, to where it's just grabbing the paper. So we're at 0. Okay. Make sure that you have that you've taken off any material off the hot end if you've got any excess filament, and then we're just going to back these screws off just a tad. Now the bullseye really should be 4 millimeters above 0 height on the hot end. So the big, I've got several of these, but 2 big wrenches is about 3.8. So we're going to use 2 big wrenches. We're going to push this up. We're going to slide the 2 big wrenches underneath the flat areas. And then we're going to just set it right there. Okay, so that's 4 millimeters up. You can go as high as 5 depending on what your hot end sock looks like. This one I could probably even go higher because I've got a thin E3D sock on it. And then we'll go ahead and raise that up. And let's see if I can move it over. Okay, now my blockhead is really tight. The fan is adjusted tight. My extruder's very tight. I'm basically ready to go, except I need to tie up these wires and then mount the fan. So let's start with the wires. This is the same type of mount that I use on a lot of my wire string with chamfer on it, and that just fits into the back. Just make sure it's all the way down. You can put 2 millimeter screws in there if you like. There's room for 2 millimeter screws in there. It's not necessary. Those hold pretty tight. And then I usually put a loop on my ABLs, so I'm going to kind of hold the wires in place, make sure that I've got enough room there, I've got room for my, and then I'm just gonna put the zip tie on there. Feed the zip tie around. Got it backwards. Good. Okay. Now I'll catch everything that I want to catch. I'll put a loop on it. I'll start the loop. And now I'll just move these into place where I want them. That's kind of where I want it, I think. And I'll just tighten up my zip tie. Okay. There's my loop on my ABL. That means I've got a lot of motion there, and it also keeps any RF interference from the other wires in that portion. I don't know if that needs to be done or not. I'll go ahead and set my extruder up. So my extruder is ready to go. I'll run a second zip tie down there. Okay. My wires are good and tight. Everything has a lot of play on it. Nothing's in a bind. Everything looks good. Hot end looks good. Everything is good and tight. Nothing's moving. What do we have here? I'll go ahead and hook up my positive to yellow. Okay. Then I'm going to run this through the back. I could have probably put that into the tie, and I might do that later, but for the time being, we'll just get it in place. And then I use just use a nylon 1024, and that's what I use to ensure that your wires are going through the side there. A little recess in it. That's down. Now, if the fan is a little bit loose, I can't adjust for every fan. So this is kind of a new mount that I designed. It keeps everything forward, and it only requires one screw to hold everything tight. If you want, you can just take we can take a piece of the cardboard that we had earlier, and I can just cut a piece of cardboard. Now this is a little bit loose. We'll just cut a piece of cardboard and we'll just put it in the back there. You could also put a little bit of silicone. Use whatever you want, or you could probably just leave it the way it is. If this was tight, I don't have a nut for the back of it. If it was tight, it would probably be fine. And okay, 2 of those holds it in place. So that it's not gonna. And this way, it gives you that adjustment, you know. Okay. Like I said, I don't know what my Z offset is. So I'm going to upload new firmware because we changed the position of the probe. The probe was in the front, if you remember. I'm going to upload new firmware, and then we'll try testing it.
Come on up here.